Hi guys, welcome to my kitchen and welcome to Ignite. Let's go straight to the scoreboard. Really close at the top of the scoreboard now. We have Charlotte on 52 points and Nathan on 51. Getting really tight, guys. You need to get all the points that you can. Joshua, Andrew, there is still a chance for you. I am very generous with my points. So get in touch, tell me what crazy fact I have hidden in our Bible verses this week. The clue is that it has something to do with genes, okay? With genes. So have a look, see if you can find that fact. Anyone else wants to get on the scoreboard? Please do, just get in touch. So another way that you can get on the scoreboard is to suggest ideas of things that people can be doing. You guys have had such a long time now at home. It's great that you can get outside again, but the more ideas that we can have for things to do, the better. So this week, the ideas that came from Ignite when we met for Jitsi, met on Jitsi for our meeting, was decorating. Some people have been decorating their bedrooms. So if you're allowed to do that, why not come up with a plan, present it to your parents, see if that's something that they would agree with. Playing instruments. So if you play an instrument, maybe you could learn some new music. Maybe you could look up some new stuff. Maybe there's some songs that you've always wanted to be able to play. There's probably the stuff out there for you to be able to learn on YouTube, or you can get the music. If you don't play an instrument and maybe you have access to one, maybe you could learn. Maybe you could start teaching yourself. There are plenty of teach yourself videos and things on YouTube. So why not go give that a go? Another idea was, now that we can get out and about with friends, so long as we keep the social distancing, why not go out with a friend for a bike ride, maybe have a picnic, or go out and walk your dog, or walk their dog, just go together. What a lovely idea. And the last idea we had when we met this week was looking after your pets. So what can you do to look after your pets? Maybe you're a little bit like my kids used to be and you don't do everything that you should. So maybe you could take on a few of those jobs, cleaning out your pets, looking after them. Maybe you could train them some new tricks. Let me know. I'd love to hear what you've been up to. So another way to get points, is to give me some ideas of ways we can help other people. And this week, the guys came up with a couple of really good ideas. So the first one was to send somebody a letter or a card, maybe even a picture that you've done. Everybody loves to get something in the post, so why not do that? And the other one is make breakfast for your mum. I think that is a fantastic idea. You can make breakfast for anyone in your family or your whole family if you want to, but make breakfast. What a great idea. Now, before I go and share some thoughts with you, I need to let you know about a worship song, because I feel like I'm probably not going to tell you in a minute. So this week, I'm not actually going to give you a song. This week, I am going to give you a worship leader. So some of the stuff that I'm going to share with you in a moment has been based on a preach that I heard from Brian Johnson that I've just loved, and God's just spoken to me through it, and it's sort of expanded into quite a large word that I'm going to share with you. And actually it's going to finish quite abruptly today because it's going to carry on next week. So I've been listening to a preach by Brian Johnson from Bethel Church, and I thought, hey, why don't you just go and look up some of his songs? What an amazing worship leader he is. He has written so many songs. He's collaborated on loads of songs. Go and find some. Look him up. Like I say, he comes from Bethel Church. Check him out and find some songs and let me know what you've been listening to. There are lots out there. Okay, so I am now going to go sit somewhere a bit more comfortable than here, and I'll share some thoughts. See you in a minute. Hi guys, so I have come and sit a bit more comfy in my living room, definitely more comfortable here than it is on the work surface. So in Ignite on Wednesday, when we met on Jitsi, we were talking about truth. We had a really interesting discussion actually, and we thought about how when you're kids, truth is really black and white, and right and wrong is really black and white. But as you grow up, the story can become a little bit more complicated. And we looked at Luke from Star Wars, and we looked particularly at The Empire Strikes Back. That's what we've been thinking about and seeing what we can learn about our faith from that, and what illustrations we can get. So the story of Luke was that when he first met Obi-Wan Kenobi, he asked about his dad, and Obi-Wan said, he's dead. And then in The Empire Strikes Back, he's having a massive battle scene with Darth Vader. All is not going well. And then it gets worse because Darth Vader says, I'm your father. And that's what we were talking about. We were thinking about, well, where is the truth? What's going on? What on earth was Luke thinking at that time? You see, when you think about it, both of those things were half-truths. They weren't exactly lies and they weren't exactly truth. You see, Obi-Wan said that Luke's father was dead. Well, everything that was Anakin was dead. And Darth Vader said that he was his father. Well, sort of, because Anakin became Darth Vader, but he wasn't really his father. So you can see, as we grow, things become a little bit more complicated, and we need to grow up to be able to understand them. If you think about school, we were talking about this a little bit in Life Team as well. So when you're in school, like I'm a science person, so for example, when you're being taught science in primary school, you're not taught very much, really, are you? Just a few basics, maybe how a seed grows a little bit. But take that as an example. When you go up to secondary school, and then they teach you how a seed grows, things become far more complicated. And I tell you, if you take that onto university level, it becomes more complicated again. But if you'd been given all that information in primary school, you weren't ready. You just wouldn't have understood it. And you know, when God leads us, when he teaches us, he does exactly the same thing. If he gave us everything we were going to need on the day we got saved, well, we wouldn't understand it. We'd be completely weighed down. We wouldn't understand because we weren't ready to understand. We hadn't grown enough to be able to understand it at that point. We all need to grow spiritually, just as we need to grow up from children to adults. The things with our spiritual growth is, though, it continues and it continues and it continues, and it won't end until we're in heaven. Okay, we know that we talked about it a couple of weeks, that there will still be mysteries in our life. There will still be things we don't understand until we get to heaven. But until that point, we carry on growing. And it doesn't matter whether you're a child or a teenager or an adult, you are still growing spiritually. Sometimes that growth is really, really steady and you feel like you're just sort of chugging along nicely on a nice little slope. And at other times, that growth can just jump from one place to another as God gives you some great revelation, or you've gone through an experience that just really increases your faith and increases what you understand of God and who he is. But that's like our growth too, isn't it? You know, you pretty much, if you've done height charts as a kid, you'll see your growth sort of you're getting taller and taller and taller. And then you hit your teenage years and all of a sudden, voof, it's off the scale. Exactly the same thing. So, whilst we've been in lockdown, we've talked quite a bit about growing spiritually. And I know that Pastor Paul has done that too, and so have a lot of the other church leaders. This is not a time to sit back and forget about God just because we're not all in the same church building. It is absolutely a fantastic time to be thinking about our spiritual growth and what we can be doing. So, the first time God talked to me, or really a time that I remember when God really spoke to me about growing up, was when he started talking to me about my fear. I know I've spoken to you about this before. A few years ago, or up until a few years ago, I had lived my life pretty much scared of everything and everyone. I just had a massive amount of fear in my life, and I didn't know anything different. My history was just to be that way. And it was one winter when we hadn't had a lot of snow, and kids were really fed up. And one morning we got up and you could see a bit of snow on the hills, but they were going into school. And it was a day when I didn't have anything much to do. And I was going for a walk, and I thought, oh, do you know, I want to go and see the snow. So I drove up to sort of Hackness, the edge of Dalby Forest, and I thought there will be snow there. And I got there, and there was, and it was beautiful. And I was like, yes, I'm going to go for a walk with God, get my boots on. I'm a big kid. I love the snow. So I sort of looped around a walk, enjoyed it. But God wasn't saying very much. And a bit later on, I'm going to talk about perseverance a little bit. But in that moment, I was like, I'm not going home without you talking to me, God. I want more than what we've just had. I've spent time with you, but I need more than this. And so I thought, right, okay, I'll just start round the loop again. And straight away, as I did that, I just had in my memory and pictures of Narnia. And of course I was in the snow and I was like, oh, wow, Lord, this is so beautiful. It's just like Narnia. And God just reminded me that those kids in Narnia, the story of C.S. Lewis and all, they had to grow up twice. And it just started just going around in my head. I was just thinking, I was like, oh Lord, what was that all about? So they went into Narnia, they became kings and queens, they grew up as kings and queens in Narnia, and then one day, at the end of the story, they're riding through the forest, they find the wardrobe again, and they go back home. And when they get back home, they're children again. And I was like, that must have been awful. They had to grow up twice. And God said to me, yeah, and I want you to start growing up now. And I was like, oh no, what is this all about? But it was when he started teaching me that living with all the fear that I had in my life was not the right thing. But it was also when he started showing me that we need to be continually growing spiritually. We all need to grow up. There's a verse in Hebrews 5:14, and this is from the Message version. I like the way it puts it. Milk is for beginners, inexperienced in God's way. Solid food is for the mature. That's just what it's like, isn't it? When we're babies, we're fed milk. As we get older, we eat solid food. We cannot live on milk forever, and that's the same for all of us. As teenagers, your bodies are growing, your brain's growing and changing, but you're growing spiritually too. Your teen years are what prepares you to leave the nest. That's what it's all about. Your brain and your body and everything is getting ready for you to be able to leave home and for your parents to let go of you. In fact, growing up, as a parent, I know, watching my kids grow, it's one step of letting them go to another, right the way along the lines. I remember when my eldest, my daughter Hannah, just started to walk. And I'd had all that time where, first of all, she needed carrying, then I supported her, then I held her hand all the time. And then the momentous day came when she could actually walk. And a couple of days later, I was just watching her toddle away from me. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, she doesn't need me anymore. Well, of course, she did still need me. She was only one. But in a sense, she didn't. She could walk away from me. When we're saved, we have this great honeymoon time with God. Everybody goes through it where we're happy and everything is going well. And then God leads you somewhere. There's a time when God just leads you out of that moment and leads you somewhere. And it's like he's just letting go a little bit and saying, do you know what? You need to walk a bit in the world now. And that's the first stage of you growing up spiritually. Jesus did the same thing with the disciples. He sent the disciples out. When he hadn't even met them very long, at that point, he hadn't even taught them how to pray. But he sent them out. In Matthew 10, verse 2 from the Message, it says, he gave them power to kick out the evil spirits and to tenderly care for the bruised, hurt lives. And then in verses 5 to 8, it says, don't begin by travelling to some far-off place to convert unbelievers. And don't try to be dramatic by tackling some public enemy. Go to the lost, confused people right here in the neighbourhood. Tell them that the kingdom is here. Bring health to the sick, raise the dead, touch the untouchables, kick out the demons. You've been treated generously, so live generously. That was a step where Jesus just let the disciples go. He told them to go out into the world, grow up a little bit spiritually. Go do this stuff. And how did they do it? How could they do it? Well, it says at the beginning, doesn't it? He gave them power. He gives us all we need for everywhere that he leads us. As we grow, we don't have to worry that we're unequipped. He gives us all the power, all his authority, his name, That's all we need, everything from him. And then I was I used this version because it was just really interesting how it says, don't begin by travelling off to some far off place. Well, that's exactly what we've been doing through lockdown, isn't it? We haven't been able to go to any far off place. As Pastor Paul's been telling us, church is in our households. And now we can invite people into our households. We can be 2 households together. Lots of people throughout lockdown, throughout this whole COVID-19 situation, have been asking questions about God, have been asking questions about our faith. And now's the time where we can just not go very far. We can speak to those around us and answer their questions and just talk to them a little bit about God. I just found that really, really interesting that that was right there in that verse. So how do we grow then? Well, we've talked a bit about it before. First off, our spiritual growth is all at God's pace. It's not at our pace, okay? It's fine for us to ask questions, but don't go where God's not taking you. He'll lead you and he'll take you. And it will be different for you than it is for anybody else, because it's his revelation to you personally. It's your relationship with God. And yeah, you know the stuff that's going to help you grow spiritually, some of it. We're going to go on to talk about more in a minute. But it's the stuff, the boring stuff, the routine stuff, the stuff we talk about all the time. But you know what? It's how we grow. It's reading your Bibles. It's praying. It's worshipping. It's practicing being filled with the Holy Spirit and practicing spending time with God. And you know what? If you don't feel like it, doing it anyway. Everybody has days, all of the great, mature, amazing Christians who you might look up to and go, I'm never ever going to be anything like them. They've all had days where they don't feel like it. I certainly have. I've got up early sometimes and gone, oh, no, I don't feel like it now. But I do feel like it in a sense because I just want to be with God. We need to persevere and we need to get some repetition in our lives. That helps us to grow. So when you're worshipping, when you're praying, when you're reading your Bibles, get some habit in your lives of when you're going to do it. Now that will change from time to time. It's bound to as you grow and things change in your lives. But maybe now is a time where you could be reading a Bible or using an audio Bible when you first wake up. Or maybe it's later in the day. But why not plan in a slot to do these things? As we grow and mature, it comes through having these habits. When you look at mature Christians who you know, it's because they've developed these habits in their lives. And like I say, it's not easy all the time, but it is so worth it to just grow in your relationship with God and to keep growing spiritually. And as you talk to your friends and you look at your friends, they'll be doing different things. And that's fine because we are all different. God made us all different. But we all have the same basic equipment. We can all have the same basic training.